Folks, it's time to suit up for another episode of the Soul Sessions. Now, quiet everyone, because it's story time. Because we have the author of his own destiny. Tig, welcome to the Soul Sessions.
Sorry, I just love hearing that nickname, the author of his own destiny. I've only heard it like once or twice so far. So like hearing it like a couple times, it feels really nice. It feels good. Thank you for
Well,
having me, man.
hey, let's go again. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of his own destiny. Tig, welcome to the show.
Oh man, thank you so. What an introduction. I can't top it. Thank you so much.
Well, every guest, even on my show, deserves the proper of entrances, Tig. But, as a storyteller, every story has a beginning. So, Tig, how did your story begin in the world of professional wrestling as a fan?
Oh, to be honest, I wish I remembered. I
Oh,
honestly don't remember. It
wow.
like the first memory I ever had was it was literally just me and my brother just watching wrestling as a kid. It was WrestleMania 20. At this
Oh,
point, didn't really know wrestling for the most part. It was, I still remember this memory. It was John Cena versus The Big Show. It's the opening match of WrestleMania 20. And at this point, I don't know how wrestling works. I just assume, hey, who's this guy, The Big Show? He's really big. He's probably winning. Oh, look at him. He's all big and strong. Where is the Big Show? Here comes John Cena. Comes out, John Cena thing. I think he's a bad guy at first, as a kid, coming out, rapping and doing all this other stuff. Then he goes ahead. He hits Big Show with a biker chain, hits their few. And of course, there's a sibling rivalry between my brother. He's picking John Cena. I'm picking the Big Show. John Cena wins. I'm upset, man.
oh, damn Cena, damn
Yeah,
you.
I
But hey,
know. I know.
I've got to say, I've got to ask Tig, I've been a big defender of a certain thing Cena did, and that's his spinner tail. I love it. I think it's an absolute beauty. Tig, do you agree with me?
Oh,
Or do you think I'm going against the
I,
narrative of the IWC?
I just, I feel like you're really going against the grain with this one. I appreciate the differing opinion. I appreciate it, but I can't, man. I'm a guy who very much preferred the belt before it.
Oh,
A ruthless aggression kid. I loved that old title, seeing it in that like 2002 era with like Angle and Lesnar, and I guess the Big Show if you want to go full circle.
well, I guess my petition for bringing back the spinner is not getting any more signatures anytime soon. Sadly,
I'm sure there'll be more people out there. Don't give up.
hope is in the heart, my friend. But
Oh,
obviously, Tig, you would go from being a fan to stepping into the ring. How did that come about?
uh, yeah, it's a very odd story. So actually, of all things, Twitter got me to do it.
Twitter. Ooh,
Yeah, I
oh,
know this is a weird thing, like, but for me, I finished university at the time,
mm,
and I, you kind of job searching and doing stuff on the side. I just kind of felt a bit directionless at that point in my life, and I remember I was just scrolling through Twitter one day, and there was this very specific like wrestling interview with a particular wrestler, and it just ended up talking about sort of like a wrestling school that was just recently being opened up. And at this point, I want to say like a bit unsure about if I want to do it because I wanted to do wrestling for years, but I was very much just sort of shy, just like reluctant to do it, even though I was like, I actually want to give this a go. And then at some point, I just kind of just bit the bullet and just said, "Hey, look, you're gonna regret it if you don't give it a go. Like, just go to this place, see what happens." Even then, I actually nearly never turned up to my first session.
oh,
Yeah, it wasn't anything wrong with particularly anything. It was literally just that I was so scared about going to this thing that I managed to find the school, and the minute I saw like wrestling happening in there, I just immediately walked out for a second until someone else walked by. It was like, "Hey, you here for wrestling?" So, uh, yes,
wow. Was it just
yeah.
sort of the fear of physical performing that kind of got over you, or was it kind of like socializing with other people?
It was, I'd say, a mixture of both. Like,
Mm,
just anxiously, like, because I didn't really grow up with like friends who liked wrestling.
mhm.
So the thought of like going into that was like a whole different thing. And then Also, like, it's a brand new environment, so like that's natural to just feel stressed about anything. But it was just kind of a combination of the two, and then being like, maybe this isn't for me, maybe this is, and just I guess that like anxiety between the two. Yeah, it's a weird story. I can't really think what would have happened if I actually didn't go to training that day.
Wow, and that's a multiverse branching path there, my friend. You never know.
Yeah, so many multiverses, man.
Well, of course. Do you remember getting in that ring and hitting the ropes for the first time? Was there something that surprised you, like the ropes, or like obviously being pallets under the mat? What was it that kind of caught you off guard?
I tell you what, it was the physicality of wrestling that really surprised
Mm.
me first. Like, not necessarily just running the ropes, but doing something as simple as like technical wrestling, like a wrist lock or something. Like a thing that I think is very underrated in wrestling is
Oh,
getting used to like physical contact with other people. Because
okay.
I think when people get into it, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this cool character and cool moves. And then you realize you actually have to touch people. It's a very, like, it sounds silly. And like, you don't think about it at first, but like the minute you actually start doing it, it's like, oh, I have to be okay doing all of this.
Hey, you got to start somewhere, and you got to actually
Yeah.
prove yourself. You can't just sit on the sidelines for these sort of things. And wrestling is a story form in itself. And I want to talk about stories if you take, because stories are
Oh,
important. There's stories in gaming, media, and all that. But I want to talk about a few. So for gaming, I think one of the stories I feel like is so poignant with me that I always remember is a game on the Nintendo Switch called Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
oh,
I think that is probably one of the most substantial stories. Would you agree? Do you think that's a good story?
I mean, look, I'm very much a Xenoblade Chronicles 1 fan. Like, I love the whole series. The fact that you
Oh,
brought up Xenoblade Chronicles, you've immediately won me over here, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
so you're a Schultz guy, not a Rex boy. Come on.
Oh, look, man, that game changed my entire perspective on video games, man. Like, it's
Oh,
just like the story, the characters, just the music. Like, don't get me wrong, 2 is fantastic for its music. Zeke is my boy. I love Zeke.
very good
Yeah,
call.
thank you, thank you. Zeke is my boy, but there's something so charming about the first game for me. Even with the remake that came out, like
Mm.
the remake, I'd argue is just as good, if not better, than the original. And you can't
Oh,
say that for a lot of remakes.
no, very true. Did you play Xenoblade 1 on the Wii, 3DS, or was it the Switch?
I played it on the Wii first, and then like
Oh,
when the remake came out for Switch, I bought it immediately. I just replayed it all over again. I had like 3 or 4 days where it was like during summertime, third year of uni. I just sat there just playing the game.
well, that is good to see. Well, I must ask you, there's so many great outfits in the Xenoblade series. If you had to pick one as an entrance attire, what one are you going for?
Oh, great question. Probably Ryan. I really like Ryan's
Oh,
original design. I know because it's like the like colony line attire of like the kind of like armored get up. Like it's a very simple thing, but orange is my favorite color. I quite like the aesthetic of it.
okay. I
Yeah,
mean, it's definitely good. I mean, so we're gonna hear you say it's take time in the ring instead of Rhine time?
funny enough, some of my friends who are not into wrestling, who know I'm a big Xenoblade fan, have suggested that I just start saying "Tig time."
Oh, magic happening there, Tig.
Oh,
You've got
magic is happening in the writers' room.
this is absolutely static. But and let's continue with Xenoblade because I truly do love the franchise.
Yeah.
Except 1, 2, 3 viewers, get yourself a Switch. Look, I'll say right here, right now, Xenoblade Chronicles is better than Breath in the Wild and the other Zelda games.
Oh,
I'll
that is
say
a
it.
hot take.
Let's get the hot takes out. Look, I love the spinner
Oh,
belt. I can't get hotter than that. I'll be nuclear at that point. So, what is it about those stories with the Xenoblade franchise that you feel are so poignant and connective with viewers?
I think it's a mixture of like the scale of the story and just sort of voice acting that isn't really the norm. Like
Mm,
Xenoblade particularly has a lot of very different like voices for like voice acting. Like you don't because sometimes when you get a lot of AAA titles, you get a lot of traditional like American, very masculine voices with like Xenoblade. You get a mixture of places. Like I know it's sometimes used for memes like English, Scottish, a little bit of Welsh in there.
yeah.
Like you know, like it's just like nice bits of variety. I really like that about it. Plus, I think if we're talking about like the whole Xenoblade series as a whole, it just has those moments, man. Like it's the same reason like we all get into wrestling. There's those like very brief moments where it's like I don't know what the heck is going to happen.
Very much so. Well, final thing on Xenoblade, I got to know, Pyra or Mithra?
I think I'm Pyra. I think I'm
Ooh.
Pyra of the two.
Take, my friend, if I had a pint in my hand, I would cheers you to that.
Oh man.
And now, moving on the arm of, the form of video games to movies. There's so many great movies with stories that have,
yeah.
The Shining, Star Wars, and many others. Take, what is a movie that you look at and think, oh, pristine story, no faults?
Oh, pristine story, no fault. See, that's tough because I think every movie has its flaws, but you can kind of look past it in some ways if you like really love it. I think for me, if we're going with a near flawless movie, there's two that come to mind. They're very different in their own way.
Ooh, okay.
I think the first Into the Spider-Verse movie, I think is one of the best like superhero movies ever made, just in general. I think in terms of like character, it being like a self-contained story, it's probably got my favorite like Spider-Man movie of all time. Is that a hot take? Saying Into the Spider-Verse?
Spider-Man 2 with Toby, that's another acceptable answer. We can go with that. I'm just saying, Toby's the best. Fight me on that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I'd say the opposite end of the spectrum is a movie like Whiplash. I really like.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, like J.K. Simmons, I think puts on one of the best performances of his career. I think it's kind of Miles Teller's like breakout movie. I think like as a story at the time when I watched it, it really spoke to me as a creative and just seeing like sort of like the struggle of everything. Yeah. I just think they're just two very good movies, but very good in their own different way.
No, of course, absolutely. And of course, wrestling's an art form as well with stories in itself, storylines that connect us with fans. Tig, you give me top three wrestling storylines that you think are so connective with the audience.
Ooh. I mean, maybe this is just currently, but the Bloodline one's really strong for me.
Of course.
Like right now, like I know it's still ongoing and it's hard to really tell, but like just look at the reactions that we've been getting for the past several months of this story, like alone. Like, and how it's basically elevated everyone who's been brought into like the main like Bloodline faction. Like Jimmy and Jay, fantastic tag team, but they've shown so much more like depth and layers through this story. Sami Zayn, a guy who we've all like beloved for like some of his stuff as a babyface, his stuff as a heel, like very underrated match with Johnny Knoxville, I think. He just continues to show like more depth and range, and I think, as I think a lot of us like saw in him, but just fully realized in a sense. And Roman, it feels weird to say he's had a redemption because I think there's like Roman as a wrestler is someone who was very divisive when he was first given that call up. But I think considering everything, he's handled the pressure of it so well. Like very underappreciated in that sense, because imagine having this entire company put on your shoulders and then it hasn't gone the way that not only the company expected, but possibly even he expected, and having to pivot so much from that.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting some of his real life like health implications, like his cancer diagnosis. Like he's done amazing work. And I understand that Roman isn't everybody's cup of tea, but like I think when you consider that and how he's just evolved as a performer, like he's done incredible. Like there's no denying it.
Very true, very true. And what are some other two stories?
Other two. It's hard to. It feels weird. This is kind of in my childhood part, but I'd probably say Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar, No Way Out 2004. It's a very short story. It's not, it's not a long-term thing where the hero overcomes the villain, but it's just the story of like Eddie, man. Like a true like wrestling legend in the sense of the word. I'm probably very biased because I rewatched No Way Out 2004 on like VHS constantly as a kid. So
Oh,
yeah,
VHS for a
yeah,
younger
man.
viewer. That's a very old format. You know, go and ask your parents about it. It's a very underappreciated art form, but one nonetheless.
Oh, yeah, it's just there's something about that, and like when the final moments of that match are happening, where like Taz is shouting that Eddie cheated, Eddie Guerrero like finding like the freaking courage to hit the frog splash onto him after like a miracle happened with Goldberg coming in and all that stuff, and the big celebration at the end. And even if you want to carry on a little bit, like the post SmackDown episode, kind of like an epilogue of sorts, where he's coming out in his lowrider, the confetti flying, like it's just so special. Like,
Very, very special.
yeah.
And one more. What's the final one? I gotta know.
One more, very special. Oh God, it's hard to narrow it down for me.
Mm.
I really love Kofi Mania. I'm not gonna lie.
Good pick.
I
Good.
yeah, no, as a long time Kofi Kingston fan as a kid, like seeing him on one of the early episodes of that new ECW, then coming to like SmackDown and Raw. I remember being a big Kofi fan the minute he beat like Randy Orton in that Survivor Series Battle Royal. Not Battle Royal, Survivor Series match. My mind is so flustered off the thought of Kofi Mania, clearly.
I'm sure you weren't a fan of how it ended, though, right?
Oh yeah, no. But hey, he got his redemption. He's got his redemption when he won the belt, so it's fine. All full circle.
Very
And
much
like,
a full circle moment.
yeah, no, yeah, like I love the parallels between that and like the Yes Movement story with Daniel Bryan. I feel like that's kind of very undercut with like the Kofi Kingston story of
Mm,
like he fought a guy who was very much in his position but kind of lost his way at the time.
mhm.
He had the help of his brothers who weren't like out to get him and still haven't like betrayed him at all. Like it's just a really lovely story. And I feel like there's so many stories that are filled with like betrayal and other stuff where this is just like friendship and camaraderie, just sort of like bringing a guy up to a place where, Xavier Woods and Big E believed in. I think it's just a really wholesome story. And I don't think there's enough of them in wrestling sometimes,
No, of course, we need more good stories, and stories
Yeah.
are great. But of course, you have your own stories. You have your own wee little leather book, take stories. How did it
Oh,
come making that book? What happened? What was that? The concept of book.
so Tixer is a very weird story.
Mm,
So, uh, the way it came about was a while back before the book and the cardigan, all that whole look happened. I had a battle royal, and then nothing really came of it after that. I, still kept training, kept doing other stuff, but I didn't really have like a character of some sort.
mhm,
And it just came to one day, I'd finished work. I was literally I was cycling kind of in a place nearby, and where I live, there's a lot of hills and just stuff where you just have to sort of like cycle by. And it felt like, when you have some of those days where it feels like Murphy's Law is just hitting you in every way possible.
Oh,
So,
that
like,
bastard. Oh,
yeah. So it was dark at night. It started to rain. I felt like my bike was like starting to creak a little bit as I was just going up this last like steep hill. I'm sweating to the gills. I've got this bike chain on my back. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I don't know what it was. I was quiet. I was in the middle of this forest. And I just said to myself that, you know what? I'm not going to let history define me. And I think in my head, I was thinking of Tig, and almost like I hit like a speed bump at some point. I almost had a bit of like a Freudian slip where I just said Tigstery by
ooh.
accident. And then like all of a sudden the cog started to turn. I was like, oh, wait. Maybe there's something here.
Yeah, Tigstery or maybe Tigtails. Never know what's going to
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Like,
It's good to see. Obviously, there's some stories already in there because obviously at SummerSlam P, you and O'Connor would face Progressive Overload. That's a hell of a tag match. What was that like going into that match?
a progressive overload, talented team. They carry around these weightlifting belts around, claiming that they're champions. But really, they've got the mindset of it. And that's something that should honestly be admired by a lot of people. Uh, Unfortunately, it didn't mean that I got the win. But look, things happen. You know, my book was thrown here, there, and everywhere. I got distracted. You know, when you're trying to make the greatest tale ever told, you, things happen, and you get distracted for a moment, and you try and fight your way back, but sometimes the odds just stacked against you. You know, like.
Mm.
And we'll edit it out. We'll edit it out in like the next volume. But for now, it has to stay. For now, unfortunately, yes, Aiden White, Benjamin Gedling, Progressive Overload. They, you know, they counted their macros. They lifted their PBs, and they beat us. They beat us, and it sucks. It sucks.
Well, hey, stories can be rewritten and changed down the line. Maybe a rematch in the future can rewrite this wrong in the story.
Oh, absolutely. More power to it. I would absolutely love to get back in the ring with Progressive Overload. I don't think Bart is particularly keen. A little bit of miscommunication from El Barto, but things will work out. I'm sure things will work out. We'll get back to it. You know, not every story has a happy ending at first. You know, you need to pivot. And you need to, you know, maybe this will be covered in like TIG Tales, you know, a spin off the TIG story, and we'll rekindle that friendship, you know.
Ooh, well, our own stories, my friend, in tales. But what about the future TIG? Is gold in the TIG story?
I mean, how could it not be? Like, you know, what's better than being a champion than having to write in the greatest story ever told that the title of champion? I mean, you know, every great story has that hurrah moment, you know, from the depths of despair, you know, heading into Act 3, and you find your resolution, and yet you achieve the prize that you didn't think you could achieve at first. Like, why wouldn't I want gold? You know?
Well, absolutely. I must note, TIG, obviously, there are many beautiful championships out there right now. The ICW, Square One Academy, Rev Pro. What's on your mind? What one would look best around the offer of his own destiny?
Ooh, you know, right now, I think for me, in the current stage of my career, I have two answers for this. The current stage of my career and where I'm at the moment, I mean, I'd love the Young Lions title, though I don't think of myself as a lion. I kind of think of myself as more of a hyena. You know, someone who isn't necessarily the king of the jungle, but when he wants something, he'll go after it with everything he's got. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever seen a lion take on a hyena? Like a hyena by any account. This is a very weird tangent, but it all makes sense in the end. A hyena, when it's confronted with a lion and they're both fighting off of a carcass, the hyena doesn't want the full thing. He just wants a scrap. But the lion is selfish, isn't it? It wants the full thing. It wants to be the king of the jungle. I'm not looking to be the king of the jungle. I'm looking to just be the Young Lions champion. Yeah.
Fair play. Good story there. A good story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Toppling the giant through finarious means.
Yeah. I mean, the dream goal for me for titles would be, you know, a title in Japan. That's a big one for me. But that's a long way away. That's a long way away. I'm not.
Well, hey, we're speaking of Japan. Everyone loves Japan. Would it be a championship in Noah or New Japan?
Ooh. I mean, you can pick either or, to be honest. Like, let's not even just stop there. Like, you know, there's All Japan, there's Dragon Gate. I love a bit of Dragon Gate.
Nice.
I think there's a lot of places in Japan that I'd love to like do stuff. If it were to ever happen, you never know. But you know, maybe one day there will be a chapter written in history. His tales in Japan. You never know.
You never know. But obviously, a lot of people consider the best looking Japanese title of all time the V4 IWGP title. Would you agree, or is there one you think that's better?
You know, I think I have to agree. It's a beautiful belt. Like, I think it's the weight of it, you know? Because there are some belts that visually look beautiful, but they kind of look a bit 2D, and that's not bad. That's not bad, but there's something about like that version of the IWGP title where it's just that thick, heavy belt, and you can kind of see like the different layers of gold around it. So like when you like hold it, you can almost like feel the weight on the person. I think there was something like very nice about it.
Very true, very true. It's definitely got a heft to it, as well as story with the side plates having the previous champion. A story title.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a story title.
Definitely. And obviously, we had AEW in New Japan with Forbidden Door on Sunday. Did you watch the show? Were you a fan of it?
Yeah, no, big fan of the show. I think it's the best Forbidden Door show they've done so far, without question. I think top to bottom, the card was really solid. For me personally, I really enjoyed the international title match. I know
Oh,
people are going to be raving about Osprey Omega and Danielson Okada, both fantastic. But for me, I love that four-way combination of like Cassidy, uh, Shibata, who I think is incredible, especially when you consider the injury he's had and the fact that he's still going.
mhm.
Zack Sabre Jr., who I think is having the run of his career so far with that television title. Daniel Garcia, who's no slouch either, even though he's trying to be a sports entertainer.
Ah,
Incredible technical wrestler, though I don't know if he'd fully admit it. I don't know. But I just think that was just a really fun match. Just put in there.
it was a hell of a card. So much great stuff going on there, Tig. But obviously, next year we'll get the next one. And let's say you could write the story of the next show. Would there be a particular Forbidden Door match you would love to see? And screw it, why not? For story 6, let's say it's in the Tokyo Dome.
Oh, great question. I would love. Oh god, this is so hard.
Ooh.
I'm my
I'll give
mind
you
is.
leeway. I'll give you leeway. It could be a tag, a triple, or a four-way.
But I feel like I have to make it make sense. I feel like my brain is like, I want to fantasy book my dream thing, but my brain just thinks it has to make sense.
Oh, careful, Tig. I think there's steam coming out of your ears there, pal.
There is, there is. uh, I really like Hiromu Takahashi, but I also equally like Robbie Eagles. So it's like I want to pick one or the other.
Okay.
I'd pick. I think I'd go Hiromu, and mostly because I think he's not my favorite wrestler in AEW, but I think it would be a very fun match if these two were kind of put together. Because I'd just be curious of what insane stuff they would do. I'd probably put Hiromu versus Darby Allin.
Okay. Okay. Not too bad.
Both are kind of known for their death-defying stunts. Both incredibly wild in the ring. I think as like a junior match on like a Forbidden Door card, that would be incredible.
That would be stunning, Tig. I feel like if we do hear that for next year, we're going to see vlogs from you outside the airport already with your ticket in hand, ready for the airplane going off. Wow. Hey, definitely, pal. Obviously, the UK wrestling scene right now is going to have a big boom with, AEW coming in for All In. I want to know, for All In, are you excited for the show coming?
Oh, very excited. Like, it's just nice to have this. It's just nice to see like the UK like get so many more big shows. Like Money in the Bank's happening next week. All In is happening. You start to see more stuff with like UK wrestling companies doing more stuff again, like Progress on Demand's doing their own thing. Rev Pro's always consistently had the streaming service. So many other companies doing their own sort of thing. Plus, like a bunch of really good UK wrestlers sort of getting out there again.
Mhm.
Like a lot of incredible talent. It's nice to see them being showcased more, especially like in various other scenes. It's just really nice. I don't really know what else to add there. It's just a nice
Yeah.
variety of things happening.
It's wholesome, Tig. It's wholesome to see our little island thrive and get all the big wigs from the States. Hey, but I must say, if Tony Khan came to you, Tig, and said, Tig, I need you on my show. I need to have you tell a story with someone in my roster. Who would you want to make a story with?
Oh, on the AEW roster, that's a great question. I have to really think about this. This is really hard.
Suspense is filling the room.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'd want to do one with Kenny. Kenny Omega, I feel like would be really fun, just because like he's the type of main event wrestler who I feel like wouldn't be afraid to do something in the sense of like a Chris Jericho, like when he teamed with Kevin Owens and you had the whole festival of friendship, and they were both very serious wrestlers, but they were okay to have a bit of a joke around. I feel like something with Kenny would be really fun.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I don't suppose you would include a Kota Ibushi run-in, would you?
Oh, I mean, who wouldn't?
Of course, the Golden Lovers reunite. I mean, the Golden Lovers is a story in itself, so connected. Do you think the Golden Lover story is going to continue soon?
I mean, I feel like it's one of those things you just have to wait and see. Of course, I'd love for it to happen. Incredible team, amazing story in of itself. That now that you've mentioned it, I can't believe I didn't mention it in it of itself. Just yeah, I'd really love to see like Golden Lovers reunite. Though I feel like it's still very early doors to see if it will happen or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just as an outsider looking in, but I'm optimistic. It'd be lovely to see it.
Well, hey, you never know in the world of professional wrestling where the stories may tell. Now, I'm going to propose one final question to you. I need to know: will the Soul Sessions be a part of TIG 3?
I mean, it has to be now. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Look, just for the fact that we talked about Xenoblade for what felt like 5 or 6 minutes, you've already earned my respect there immediately. I love that.
Well, I thank you, good sir, and I am very proud of that. Who knows? Maybe if you need someone for the ring, a manager, if that, I'm sure the Soul Man could put on a tie and a waistcoat that's not too tight in the seat for one day. Well, thank you very much, TIG, and viewers. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions. But before we go, what I like to do with every guest, TIG, if they have loved what they have heard from you, where can they find you coming for the rest of the year?
You can find me on Twitter at TIG_PW. You can also find me on Instagram at TIG_PW. And you can also find me on TikTok at TikTok because it's a great play on words.
Oh, very, very so. And don't worry, viewers. I know some of you can be lazy, so I will put TIG's Instagram link in the description of this video below so you have no excuse. Now, come on now. Didn't be excusing. Well, TIG, thank you very much, my friend, for being on the Soul Sessions. I have been your host, Soul. Thank you, everyone. And remember to stay tuned for more Soul Sessions.